I'll get started. Hi, how you doing? I'm Brett Macquarrie. I'm a Shopify account executive, and as advertised, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of Omnichannel, and we were referencing it earlier before in terms of that having that seamless customer experience. But before we get into it, I did want to introduce the panel here, starting with Sam Chen.
Hi everyone, Sam Chen. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing at MPIC. We are a pantry manufacturer based in Dallas. So I have about 20 years in the sales and marketing in the traditional CPG with General Mills, Anheuser-Busch, Reckitt, and now with MPIC, which is more of a startup-like company. Excited to be here.
Olivia Frere with Extensive. I've worked in e-com for 15-ish years, first starting with a small women's apparel brand, largely in the outdoor industry, and then going to a high-end furniture manufacturer that focused on dropship. And now I work for Extensive, where we focus on connecting brands with fulfillment networks and making sure that we're giving them seamless fulfillment experiences.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Bordeaux. I'm an account director at Feedonomics. We are basically known as a full-service, fully managed feed management service and platform. Been with Feedonomics for almost 7 years, really on the front lines of merchants that have data feed issues. And so my job is to really help spread awareness, adoption of the platform, and work with all of our agency partners, including Trellis. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to start off with a question in the group, but I'll add a little bit more context. It's a broad kind of question, a statement, right? Which is, what does omnichannel mean to you? Because it is a broad term. I'll start in terms of Shopify, but just want to go through each one here. Is what does omnichannel mean to you at your organization, right? So I'll give you guys like 5 seconds to think about it while I answer it from Shopify's perspective. And just my experience, I came from Oracle Retail and Aptos, where we sold. You were talking earlier about New Balance. New Balance uses Aptos' order management system. But at a high level in the world I live in, kind of talking to large retail brands, it's pretty darn straightforward in terms of having that seamless customer journey, no matter where the customer shops, whether it's inventory visibility on the website, a customer service agent, pulling up an order to seeing, adding to the order, or what I think is the most impactful, and again, I'm curious everyone's perspective, New Balance uses this, is endless aisle. I always thought that always had the highest ROI, and what that means is, you don't have this pair of shoes in store, let me look it up on the system, and that's where the magic happens, right? A lot of API calls, all of that, right? To be able to look up an order, or to look up some inventory and say, we don't have this pair of shoes, but we can ship it from this store, we'll ship it from this warehouse. So that's what it means to me. I'll turn it over to Sam.
Sure. So I think omnichannel for us and for me personally at MPIC is that making sure that we have our product basically everywhere, right? Online, offline. And then you talked about, a keyword seamless, right? I think that is really key for us as well. Really making sure that the brand is represented in the way that is consistent, right? Of course, we consider the differences, the nuance of consumer shopping through different channels. But overall, we want to put our brands in front of consumer where they know, okay, this is what Embo, which is one of our brands, and Get Naked Pet Treats, which is another brand, represent, right? So that's really what it's about for us.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think for us, it's really focusing on the inventory and fulfillment. It's great to say, you need this inventory here. I need to make sure my customer has it available, but you can't do that without the visibility. So for us, it's making sure that all of our teams, both our strategy teams, our fulfillment teams, our internal customer service teams, can all see where the inventory is. So like you said, if you need to find something that isn't in your store, where is it and how quickly can I get it to my customer? So for us, it's really the inventory visibility, I think, is the most crucial part of the experience.
For Feedonomics, it's definitely, I talk to a lot of merchants that have really big eyes, right? They want to be everywhere. But that's like a lot easier said than done, right? A lot of channels are very specific data requirements. And so it's really important for them to just sort of understand that once they've done their market research, they understand that this channel is going to be a good fit for them. TikTok is going to be a good fit for them. What does it mean for their data to migrate off of their source system and get to TikTok and actually be relevant to that system? So a lot of what we're doing is really just sort of helping them understand gap analysis associated with their product feed and their catalog, and where we can sort of help augment that or really sort of fill in the blanks. But yeah, it's definitely easier said than done. But yeah, definitely talking to a lot of folks that really want to be everywhere.
It's like losing weight, right? Easier, really hard to
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
but easier. I mean,
For
that's
sure.
a bad analogy.
Good to
Staying
have
healthy
wishes,
is
yeah.
probably the more correct term to.
Easier
I
to
guess.
set the goal. But
Yeah. No, exactly. So that's super interesting from your perspective in terms of your and this is why I asked the question in terms of what does omnichannel mean, and in terms of I didn't. Great point, right? In terms of in your world, that's going to be more on the social channel again, having that seamless customer experience. Interesting what you said too. I was talking to a large omni brand literally yesterday, and they brought exactly that point up, which is, hey, what's the hard? And this is going to be my next question to you all. What's the hardest part in your world and what you've seen about omni? Because it is hard. So, and that was the answer, is getting the inventory right. So I guess it's kind of I guess a two-part question is, starting with you, and then we'll go Sam, and then back this way. What is the most challenging part of delivering an omni experience and seamless customer experience?
I think it's having the data that you need. So when I started for this very small women's apparel brand, we had no idea what we were doing. We were all on different spreadsheets. We were trying to get inventory in and out of our DCs. We'd won at that point. And then we started working with big stores like REI, and that was a game changer for us, where we really needed to have the data at the backbone of our business to be able to make decisions on where to put our inventory, where we can make things available for customers. Did it make more sense to have it available on places like Amazon, or maybe more on our website, right? And so making sure that we were able to use that data in a way to help us develop these strategies, whether it was our warehousing strategies or our supply chain team, making sure we had things available, they were landing at the right time. So for me, it's always the consistency in the data was the most important.
I think for us, is I would say the challenge is more internal, right? Because we started off as a manufacturer, and then the founder, CEO of our company always think that you make a good product, you put it out there somewhere, right? People will buy it. Eventually, you grow to a pretty good business. But I think maybe most of you in the room knows that it's not true to some degree, right? So how do we convince and then really change the mindset of, hey, we don't need to do any marketing or digital effort at all, right? And then to really think about how do we make sure that all the product that we have everywhere are getting enough support, right? And then I think comes to the point of data. How do we leverage the data to show and convince internally that, hey, we're actually spending the money at the right place? Because to us, not only the top line growth is important, also the bottom line profitability, right? I think the last panel kind of talked about profitability. Profitable growth is very, very important for a lot of the organization. Same to us, right? So how do we leverage that, and then to prove that these are the marketing channel that we should go with. These are the tactics that we should go with is important for us.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, it's, and Olivia talked about it for a little bit as well, it's like missing data. Where does the data come from? Like we do a lot of, we won't even let you onboard actually with us if you don't get a sort of a green light from our sales engineering team saying that you've got all the right data for Amazon and for TikTok and for meta channels and so forth. So I think that a lot of folks, they don't understand really like, what their catalog looks like from a data feed perspective. A lot of times they don't have like really critical fields like UPCs or GTINs and other codes that are associated with their products, especially if they're resellers. So we oftentimes can really help them isolate and spotlight any sort of gaps in the data that they need for any particular channel. But yeah, that's oftentimes a really big blind spot for merchants, for sure.
Sure, okay. One other question I had for the group, and we'll start with you, Sam, in a second. Is there, in terms of the, and actually you were touching on it a little bit earlier, if you'd expand on it, is there a particular Omni use case where you're seeing the highest ROI? And I referenced, I think there was something really impressive, again, it was back from my Aptos days, in terms of New Balance enabling endless aisle, even in their 100 stores, right? Is there, and again, just we'll go down the row here in terms of, again, is it more of an overall element in terms of that ROI or a specific use case?
Yeah, I think at the beginning we sort of look at the ROI more separately, right? So to give a little bit more background with our business, so we sell on Amazon, Chewy, Peggle.com, and some of the, I would say, independent mom and pop pet store in your neighborhood, right? And then 2 years ago we went into Walmart, start selling on Walmart.com, and that's sort of where we started thinking about the omni-channel strategy, right? Because Walmart.com obviously growing so fast, and then there's Walmart store highly distributed across the country, right? So how can we, be in the store and then do, I think, the last panel also talked about sampling program, in-person interaction, right? To, bring us to the top of mind of the Walmart shopper, and in turn also have, Walmart.com advertising, to bring searchability, discoverability of our product on the website, right? So everything sort of, come together, and then we can look at our revenue, right? And then we can have data from AC Nielsen to look at the scan data and see how much actually come through the entire system. So that's how, kind of put us in a position to really evaluate, I would say, the effort and the outcome coming from, the omnichannel effort.
Yeah, and I think in order to do that, I always tell our customers, you don't know what you don't know when you're little and you're growing. There's so many things that are just you're blind to. And so what we talk a lot with our customers is about is, people like you want to focus on the brand and reaching your customers and getting to them and the marketing, the kind of the exciting, sexy stuff of being a brand, and not so much about the fulfillment and the backbone. And a lot of people call it the F word, right? You just don't really want to talk about it. So, I think where you can put in plays where things are automated and you can focus on the parts of your business that you want to do best, I think is where you will see the highest ROI.
For us, we really appreciate when a merchant comes to the table with kind of a go-to-market plan in terms of the channels that they want to go to. A lot of times there's a mandate that comes from the top that says, okay, our CMO wants us to go to TikTok, right? How can we get to TikTok in 3 months? So a lot of that is on us to sort of really help build that bridge for them. But to some degree, it's always going to be exploratory, right? If they don't really have a hard sense of projected revenue volumes or anything like that associated with exploring a new channel, we can help build that bridge. But yeah, them going across it sometimes is definitely something they need to learn for themselves.
Got it. Other than again, you have kind of different backgrounds up here. Is there any brand out there? And again, we'll mix up the order here and put you on the spot. Is there any brand that you see out there that that everyone kind of knows that you think does Omni really well from your perspective, right? In terms of from a social standpoint.
That's a good question, because we're on the kind of a front lines of a lot of beta programs like Meta Shop ads, and I've obviously been saying TikTok a lot. I think that people that are able to kind of sort of like be in the beta programs with these channels, are really kind of the ones like I would say Procter & Gamble does a pretty good job. Some of their brands about really sort of being on the front lines of exploring those channels, things like that. But yeah, it's definitely sort of at its nascent stage with some of the social channels for sure.
I think the brands that do it the best are the ones that give you this delightful customer experience, and then they follow through with what they're doing, right? So you've got brands like Sephora, which I have a 14-year-old niece who goes online and uses this app that lets her see what the makeup looks like before she buys it. And so we did this for her birthday and picked it up 4 hours later. It was awesome. So they had nailed the customer experience for this target customer who was 14 years old. And then we went and picked it up 3 hours later. I think Nordstrom does stuff really well. Of course, Home Depot does it as well. But kind of getting the end-to-end CX and that experience both from the shopping experience all the way to when you pick it up and touch that product is so awesome. And I think Sephora does that really, really well.
I think from our industry in Petri, Greenings is probably a brand that you guys are all familiar with if you have dogs and cats, dogs or cats, right? So I think they did a good job in terms of having the right distribution, and then they support it with the right marketing mix, in the store, online, even above the line, with TV commercial or sometimes even outdoor, right? So I think that really bring it to the top of mind of all the consumers, and when they go into the stores, they think about you. They look up online, and you have the right reviews and right ratings, right? And then that sort of close the deal, and that's I think sort of the aspiration for us as a challenging brand to go after. And I think another example will be Nike, right? We just talked about
3 out of 4
three
of us,
wearing Nikes, and I'm a huge sneaker fans, and basically being touched by Nike 24/7 basically, because I'm on my phone, on my laptop, and then and you watch TV, you can see all those logo in different games, and no disrespect to the Boston community, because I think New Balance is the local brand, right? But yeah, I think that will be another example that I think of.
Got it. You brought up Home Depot. It is interesting. This isn't like a classic omnichannel, but I know Home Depot spends like an insane amount, and they get it wrong still sometimes. But I think really we're all for the most part technologists to a certain extent in the room. I feel like kind of the consistent theme is, and it's even consistent with like a project, right? Which is, you can have the greatest technology in the world, but if you don't have, what I'm going to say is not revolutionary here, if you don't have the right people and processes in place, it can be an utter and incomplete failure.
Yeah, and I think, for me, the part about the omni-channel experience, we talk a lot about seamless, but it's just easy. Creating the easy experience for your customer that makes it easy for them to order the product and get it to them is what's so critical. So it can be seamless. We can think internally, like you said, we're tech-minded, we're making all these API calls, we're doing the things we need to do. But if the customer doesn't feel that it's super easy to get the product they need, then all that effort is almost wasted.
It's a great call out in terms of just how to describe, seamless but easy, right? It's doesn't matter, in my world, selling, software to whatever, make sales easy, make it easy to buy. You never obviously want that friction, whether it's Shopify's legal team or
Shopify is pretty easy to use, I'll say.
It is. No one from Shopify legal's here, right? Okay, I can say that. Right? Yeah. Cool. My last question, then we can kind of turn it over. I want to be mindful of time. And again, Sam, we'll start with you. Like, what trends are you seeing, or is there anything in your unique world? Are you seeing anything unique, or where do you see this all omni going? What we're talking about going in the next couple of years?
I think in the CPG world, there's this word digital transformation, right? And I think that's still ongoing because we're just talking about this right before this. Is that a lot of the companies sort of start with the B2B B2C model, right? We sell through wholesale, sell through distribution, and now we really need to play catch up with the e-commerce, right? Need to start our own channel, and I think a lot of bigger company move a lot faster than smaller company like us. So we really need to make sure that we have the right resources and right team in place so that we can catch up on that. So I think that's one trend, or I should say challenge some of the small to medium business like ours that started let's say decades ago will have to face, right? Of course, there's a lot of new brands right now in the market that sort of already start with the D2C like we talked about, and I think there's a lot definitely for us to learn from, and then for us to capture the growth opportunity.
We're seeing an interesting shift from D2C brands that did a tremendous amount of business over the last couple of years that are now interested in actually becoming the fulfillment providers for other brands. So we see a lot of 4PL networks that are being built, and a lot of big D2C brands that are now also testing the wholesale market, a little bit opposite of what you're saying, but their sort of natural growth is to go from D2C into wholesale. In addition to that, they're really interested in helping other brands grow and scale through creating these fulfillment networks. And it's fascinating to have these conversations with these D2C brands and say, okay, we bought a warehouse, but we've got a problem. We don't have as many brands anymore. D2C is sort of slowing down. We want to become the fulfillment network for our brands. And so that's been an interesting change in the dynamic.
Probably for us, it's going to be the increased reliance on automation. I think as more, especially with like Google Shopping, as more campaign types head towards Performance Max and things that are really wholly reliant on a quality catalog feed file. I would say if you take anything away from anything that I've said here today, just make sure that your merchants understand the importance of their catalog data. And if you are a merchant, don't be hasty with making sure that you understand how your data is being presented to the channels that you're advertising on.
I'll answer the question because I work at Shopify. What we're seeing, and it's mostly but not 100%, well, it is. The Shop app, I assume, most of you are familiar. There's Shop Pay and there's the Shop app. We're starting to see not just some of the smaller brands, but really big, well-known brands like Spanx, for example, that are starting to generate material revenue from the Shop app, taking advantage of, and so this is a Shopify infomercial, so bear with me. But again, we're just starting to see that as an additional sales channel. And it's something that's been eye-opening to me, just not only the sales team, but also chatting with our existing customers, and again, using some of, because it's relatively new, right? Some of that shop cache. Any questions from the group?
Just a quick observation and a question. A lot of folks don't talk about services in omnichannel, but there are, right? Instead of just products. So, do any of you have experiences in omnichannel with services as opposed to product?
Yeah, I do a little bit. Just basically like hotel ads, things like that.
What do you? Sorry, what do you mean
so
by service?
A lot of experiential things, where it could even be massage businesses, for example, or nail businesses. We were talking about nail care earlier. Those actually are not necessarily all about product. They're about the service, but they are figuring out how to market themselves across multiple channels.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have any experience, but it's an interesting topic right now, because that is where I do think a lot of, apparel, footwear, retail is going, right? You're like, there's, I can't remember, it may have been Nike, where it's like, or maybe, no, it was Under Armour, where you're gonna go to that store to try in a pair of shoes, run the treadmill, right? Like, truly have that experience. And I think, people always talk about like the retail apocalypse, and it's vastly overrated, but I feel like it's retailers that aren't having that differentiated experience are the ones that often, suffer the consequences of bankruptcy.
My question is, it's my industry, but my general question is about search and how search has advanced over the years. So my general question is that we're in 2023 and in 2011, Apple released the iPhone 4S, and we had Siri embedded into it. Then at that point, we had a hit a button, ask a question, get an answer UX, which was a great UX, right? Today, Google does great search, certainly. Amazon does great search, definitely. In the e-commerce world, though, right, I don't see it much. Everyone kind of defaults to bring products back. Now you've got filters and sliders. You kind of end up navigating your way through it. And Gartner, for the past 5 years, is talking about conversational commerce, and we're just not seeing it. I'm just wondering, are you guys experiencing that? What are your thoughts on that?
Not a ton. I mean, I remember when Google, all the buy on Google, Google Express, all of that was supposed to effectively work with Google Assistant. So you could yell at your Google Assistant saying, hey, I'm looking for this. But it never really, in our world, it never took off. It's something that we helped drive adoption for, but it never really picked up much steam. But I think there's still room for it, for sure.
I think maybe the next iteration of what you're describing too leverages some of that generative GPT, right? In terms of going to a site and you literally, it's almost like having an in-store associate, but actually on. So I think, again, the retail brand that figures it out, and for all I know, it'll be in like 2 days, right? That they'll have it figured out.
Yeah, I think you can do some of that now, though, with consumer data and your customers' data that you have, and then work towards pushing them into the right product and the right packaging and the right solutions that they need. And we do a little bit of that, where we'll look at distribution, inventory, shipping data, and really help our customers decide, what's the best next step for you. Is it a 3PL, a 4PL, an in-house solution? And so we do a little bit of that, but probably not to the extent that you're talking about yet.
Any other questions? We do have a few minutes left, but not too many.
When it comes to, we talked a lot about the data side of things. When it comes to smaller businesses out there, what have you guys seen is the most important piece of data that smaller brands tend to overlook?
Probably variant level data, especially if they've got color, size, material, things like that. They're generally want to broadcast the parent SKU only, and I think they're really shooting themselves in the foot, because there's an availability thing there too. If there's a certain variant that's unavailable, they'll still drive traffic to that landing page. So I think that's probably the biggest thing on my side.
I think your customer journey, so focusing really on every single touch point in your customer journey, not just the parts where they're falling off, but the places where you're doing really well as well, so that you can really double click on those and figure out, what your customers are loving, what they're not. You said something really interesting where you guys are going from wholesale to D2C, and we did something very similar in a prior role where we were, kicking ass in the wholesale market, but we had no idea who our customer was. And so we ended up going into a D2C direction, which worked really well. So we used a lot of that data to kind of map the customer journey and understand how we could better sell on our wholesale channels through the data we were collecting from D2C.
Yeah, I think another very important piece for this is that with D2C, you basically see entirely who this consumer is, right? And so you have address, you have the phone number, you have their email, right? Of course, there's the privacy issue, but then if we get to really unlock that, and then you can even just reach out to them proactively, right, with a questionnaire, invitation to focus group, right, to really understand what brings them to your brand and what is their opinion after using your product, and then also why how frequent they're getting to your product or services, right? I think that could really unlock a lot of the valuable assets to your business, and and to help you think about the next iteration of your core product or new innovation opportunity.
Anything else? Cool. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.